My girlfriend said, "If you can't handle me, just say so," after embarrassing me in public. I said, "I can't handle you." She thought I was joking until I did something that left her speechless. The next morning she found out what I did. I, 29M, never thought I'd be the type of guy to plan revenge, but some people push you past your breaking point. What happened last Friday night changed everything, and by Saturday morning, my girlfriend learned exactly what happens when you mistake kindness for weakness. We'd been together for 8 months. She was beautiful, confident, and had this way of commanding attention wherever we went. At first, I found it attractive. She knew what she wanted and wasn't afraid to go after it. But over time, I started noticing a pattern that made my stomach churn. It started small. She'd correct me in front of friends about stories I was telling, claiming I got details wrong. She'd interrupt conversations to redirect attention back to herself. When we'd go out with my coworkers, she'd make little jokes at my expense that left everyone uncomfortable while she laughed like it was all harmless fun. Last Friday was supposed to be special. My company was hosting its annual dinner at an upscale restaurant downtown. I'd been looking forward to introducing her to my boss and some senior colleagues. I'd mentioned multiple times how important this evening was for my career. The night started perfectly. She looked stunning in a black dress that turned heads when we walked in. My boss seemed impressed, and the conversation was flowing well at our table. I was finally relaxing, thinking maybe I'd been overthinking her behavior all these months. Then the drinks started flowing, and her true colors emerged. It began when my colleague was telling a story about a recent project I'd led. She cut him off mid-sentence to share an embarrassing story about how I'd gotten lost using GPS the previous weekend, claiming I was hopeless with technology. Everyone laughed, but I could see the confusion in my colleague's eyes. When my boss asked about my recent achievements, she jumped in again, this time sharing how I'd burned dinner 3 nights in a row and nearly set off the smoke alarm. She was painting me as some incompetent fool while I sat there, my face burning with embarrassment. The final straw came when she started telling everyone about my fear of spiders, complete with exaggerated gestures mimicking how I'd supposedly screamed and jumped on a chair. My boss looked uncomfortable. My colleagues were exchanging glances. The respect I'd spent months building was crumbling in real time. I tried to laugh it off, but inside I was dying. When I gently placed my hand on her arm and suggested we talk about something else, she shrugged me off and told me to lighten up. She said everyone thought the stories were funny, clearly oblivious to the awkward silence at our table. During a brief lull, I leaned over and quietly asked her to tone it down a bit. That's when she said it, loud enough for the entire table to hear. "If you can't handle me, just say so." The table went dead silent. All eyes were on me. My boss was staring. My colleagues were waiting to see how I'd respond. In that moment, something inside me snapped. I looked her straight in the eye and said, "I can't handle you." She laughed, thinking I was playing along with her joke. She told everyone I was so funny and dramatic. But I wasn't joking, and something in my expression must have finally registered because her smile faltered slightly. I excused myself to the bathroom, but instead of going there, I stepped outside and made a phone call. My best friend had been telling me for weeks that I deserved better, and he'd made an offer that I'd previously dismissed. He worked for a moving company and had said anytime I wanted to get my stuff out of her apartment, he could help make it happen quickly. I called him and told him I needed his help tomorrow morning. He didn't ask questions, just confirmed he'd be there with a truck at 9 a.m. The rest of the dinner was torture. I smiled and made small talk while she continued her performance, seemingly unaware that she'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross. When we got home, she was in high spirits, talking about how much fun she'd had and how much everyone had loved her stories. I told her I had some work to catch up on and stayed up late in the living room, not because I had work, but because I couldn't bear to lie next to her. She fell asleep quickly, probably still riding the high of being the center of attention. The next morning, she left early for her yoga class like she did every Saturday. She mentioned she might grab brunch with her sister afterward and wouldn't be back until the afternoon. Perfect. My friend arrived with 2 other guys and a truck at exactly 9 a.m. I'd been living at her place for the past 4 months, so I had accumulated quite a bit of stuff. We worked systematically and efficiently. Clothes, books, electronics, kitchen items I'd bought, furniture I'd contributed, pictures of us that I quietly threw into a garbage bag. The hardest part was packing up the things that represented our good times together. Concert tickets we'd saved, souvenirs from trips, the coffee mug she'd bought me that said, "World's okayest boyfriend," which I'd actually found endearing at the time. Now it just felt like mockery. Within 2 hours, every trace of me was gone from her apartment. I left my key on the kitchen counter along with a note that simply said, "You were right. I couldn't handle you. Don't contact me." But I wasn't done. See, she had this habit of posting everything on social media. Our relationship, our dates, our fights, our makeups, everything was content for her. She'd posted pictures from the dinner the night before, tagging me and all my colleagues, captioning it about what a fun night with the work crew it had been. I went through her social media and methodically untagged myself from every photo, every post, every story from the past 8 months. Then I blocked her on every platform. Not angrily, not dramatically, just efficiently erasing myself from her digital life the same way I'd erased myself from her physical space. I also reached out to mutual friends, not to talk badly about her, but to let them know we'd broken up and I'd prefer not to be included in group events where she'd be present. I was polite but firm about needing space. The masterstroke was texting her sister. They were close, and I knew she'd be the first person my girlfriend would call when she discovered what happened. I sent a simple message explaining that we'd broken up, I'd moved out, and while I harbored no ill will, I wouldn't be changing my mind. I asked her to please respect my decision and help her sister understand that contacting me wouldn't change anything. By noon, I was in my new studio apartment across town, a place I'd secretly viewed and put a deposit on 2 days earlier after our fight about her joking habit had gotten particularly bad. I'd been planning an exit strategy without realizing it. My phone started buzzing around 2 p.m. First came the confused texts asking where I was. Then the concerned calls asking if something was wrong. Then the angry messages demanding I call her back immediately. I didn't respond to any of them. The calls escalated throughout the afternoon. She'd apparently gone home to find the apartment empty of my presence, the key on the counter, and my note. According to the increasingly frantic voicemail she left, she tried calling my work, my family, anyone who might know where I was. Her sister called me around 4 p.m. She was surprisingly understanding, mentioning that she'd witnessed some of my girlfriend's behavior at family gatherings and had wondered how I put up with it. She promised to talk to her sister about respecting my boundaries, but warned me that she wasn't taking it well. That evening, I turned off my phone and went to a movie by myself. For the first time in months, I felt genuinely relaxed. No one was going to embarrass me, belittle me, or make me the punchline of their entertainment. Update 1. Sunday morning brought a new wave of contact attempts. She'd apparently spent Saturday night cycling through all our mutual friends, trying to get someone to tell her where I was or convince me to talk to her. Most of them had respected my request for space, but a few had tried to play mediator. I sent a group message to those friends explaining that while I appreciated their concern, this wasn't a fight that needed resolving. I'd made a permanent decision about my life and needed them to respect it. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. She'd apparently borrowed someone else's phone to message me. The text was long and rambling, switching between apologies, explanations, anger, and bargaining. She claimed she'd been joking, that everyone knew she was just being playful, that I was overreacting to harmless fun. The part that really got to me was when she wrote that she'd made me more interesting, that her stories showed my human side, that I was too serious, and she'd been helping me connect with people. She genuinely believed that humiliating me in front of my professional colleagues had been a favor. I screenshotted the message and blocked that number too. Monday brought a new challenge. She showed up at my office building during lunch, waiting by the entrance. Security wouldn't let her up, but she could wait in the lobby for public areas. My colleague who'd been at the dinner Friday night spotted her and gave me a heads up. I called building security and explained the situation. They agreed to escort me to my car through a side exit. As I was leaving, I could see her through the glass doors, checking her phone constantly, probably hoping I'd respond to whatever new messages she'd sent. Update 2. The week continued with her escalating attempts to force contact. She sent flowers to my office with a card that said, "We need to talk." I had them donated to the hospital across the street. She tried having food delivered to my old apartment address, apparently forgetting I no longer lived there. Her sister called again Wednesday, sounding exhausted. She told me my ex had been calling her multiple times a day, convinced that if she could just explain herself, I'd understand and come back. She'd apparently rewritten the entire narrative in her head, claiming that I'd misunderstood her intent and that everyone at the dinner had actually been having a great time. I told her sister that this was exactly the problem, her inability to take responsibility for the impact of her actions, even when the consequences were staring her in the face. Thursday brought the most revealing development. One of my colleagues from the dinner approached me privately. He said my ex had somehow gotten his contact information and had called him, asking him to tell her what had really happened Friday night. She wanted him to confirm that everyone had been laughing with her, not at me. He'd been honest with her. He told her that her behavior had made everyone uncomfortable, that my boss had actually commented later about how inappropriate it was, and that several people had felt bad for me. When she argued that she'd just been having fun, he told her that humiliating your partner isn't fun for anyone except the person doing it. According to him, she'd gotten angry and accused him of lying to make her look bad. She'd hung up on him when he suggested that maybe she should reflect on why her boyfriend had left rather than trying to rewrite what happened. Update 3. Friday marked exactly 1 week since the dinner incident. I was starting to feel like I could breathe again. My new apartment was small but peaceful. I was sleeping better than I had in months. Work felt more comfortable knowing I wouldn't have to worry about being embarrassed in front of colleagues again. That afternoon, her sister called with news. My ex had apparently spent the week talking to anyone who would listen, trying to get validation for her version of events. But the responses weren't what she'd expected. Her own friends had started questioning her behavior after hearing her side of the story. When she told them about the dinner, expecting sympathy and support, several had pointed out that embarrassing your partner in front of their coworkers wasn't okay, even as a joke. Her sister said she'd finally broken down and admitted that maybe she had gone too far, but she insisted it came from a place of love. She claimed she'd been trying to make me seem more relatable and human to my stuffy work colleagues. I told her sister that intentions don't erase impact, and that after 8 months of similar incidents, Friday night hadn't been an isolated mistake, but a pattern of behavior that I couldn't continue to accept. The weekend passed quietly. No contact attempts, no surprise visits, no borrowed phones. I actually managed to enjoy myself, meeting up with friends I hadn't seen much while I'd been constantly managing her social needs. Final update. Monday morning brought closure in an unexpected way. My boss called me into his office, and for a moment, I panicked, thinking somehow the drama had followed me to work despite my best efforts. Instead, he wanted to discuss my recent project performance and a potential promotion opportunity. Then he mentioned Friday's dinner, saying he'd been impressed with how professionally I'd handled a difficult situation. He said leadership often reveals itself in how someone manages personal challenges without letting them affect their work relationships. I realized that while she'd thought she was exposing my weaknesses, she'd actually demonstrated my strength to the people who mattered most for my career. That afternoon, I received one final message, this time from her actual number. It was different from all the others, shorter, less desperate, more resigned. She said she'd been doing some thinking and was starting to understand why I'd left. She apologized for not listening sooner and said she hoped I'd be happy. I didn't respond, but I didn't immediately block the number either. It felt like an ending rather than another manipulation attempt. 3 weeks later, I heard through mutual friends that she'd started dating someone new. According to the reports, she was being very careful about her behavior, apparently having learned something from our relationship after all. I felt genuinely happy for both of them. Not because I wanted revenge or to see her suffer, but because everyone deserves the chance to grow and be better. Her new relationship wasn't my concern, but knowing she was potentially treating someone else with more respect than she'd shown me felt like a small victory for personal growth. Looking back now, I realized that the dinner wasn't really about the embarrassment, though that was certainly painful. It was about respect. She'd consistently chosen her momentary entertainment over my dignity, and that Friday night had simply been the most public example of a private pattern. Some people said I should have talked to her more, given her more chances to change. But after 8 months of smaller incidents and conversations that went nowhere, I learned that some people only understand consequences, not conversations. The best part isn't that I got revenge, it's that I got my self-respect back. I stopped accepting behavior that made me feel small, and I discovered that walking away with dignity is sometimes the most powerful response of all. She'd asked if I could handle her, and I'd given her an honest answer. What she didn't expect was that I'd handle the situation on my own terms, quietly and completely, leaving no room for negotiation or manipulation. Sometimes the most devastating thing you can do to someone who thrives on drama is to remove yourself from their stage entirely. I can handle a lot of things. I just couldn't handle being with someone who thought my humiliation was their entertainment. And I'm okay with that boundary. If you'd like to see more stories like this, a gentle tap on the subscribe button would mean the world to us. Please subscribe.